point towards the status bar. Because think of touch, what is it? You're actually more than just a single point on the screen. You're a bigger area, right? Your finger represents a bigger area on the screen. So, but iOS gives you a single point. So they're doing some magic to figure out what you really meant to be touching on the screen, and it just so happens that it's biased towards the status bar. And you can see here that this circle is in fact kind of shifted more towards the status bar, just like the other circle is. So it was an interesting issue. I wish iOS would give you more of the area, or at least you could have that option to say, hey, this circle represents the whole touch area. Because then if they did that, we could say, well, we're going to go with this edge or this edge. But they don't. So they just give you a single point. So the only thing you can really do is shift that circle back down. And that's exactly how I handled it in the code. All right, moving on to computer AI. Anyone recognize that image? Rob the robot? Interesting story with that I just heard, actually. Back in 1983, the gaming industry crashed, right? They stopped buying games from 83 to 85 because they were making so much crap. Atari was. And so people stopped buying games, and stores stopped carrying games, and it went from $1 billion industry in 83 to $1 million industry in 85. And nobody was playing games, no one was buying games, no stores were carrying games. And so Nintendo wanted to get their NES into the stores, and they had to come up with a way to do it. So they said, well, we're not a gaming console. This is an entertainment system that comes with a robot, and you can control it. And it was the biggest piece of crap. Nobody used it. They just threw that away and kept the Nintendo. But it got the stores to actually carry the Nintendo. So I thought that was a funny story. I wanted to bring that into it. And so that's Rob, our robot. So how do you create a robot? And how do you make it look realistic? And I think a lot of it has to do with human modeling. You want to look at a game of, let's say, air hockey, and you want to figure out, how does a human play that game? How can I make a computer? How can I mimic a computer to mimic the behaviors that we would do when we're playing? And so it got me thinking, well, if I'm going to write a computer player for air hockey, what do we do when we play? And the obvious things are, well, sometimes we play defense, right? So they have the other player has the puck, you want to take a defensive approach, you want to block the shot. So maybe that's one of the states that the computer player is in. They're going to be on defense, or maybe they have the puck and they want to play offense. So that would be another state. But then there were some other states that came up because maybe they're bored. Nothing's going on the game itself. And, what do you do when you're bored? Sometimes you just move the paddle around and play with it because you're waiting for a shot. Nothing's happened. So that's another state that we could code. And, of course, the big one is decision state, or the wait state, as I labeled it, because the phone is so fast that you can't just be reacting all the time. If you're a computer player, you do too much. You go crazy. The paddle would be all over the place, right? So a lot of it is just letting the computer wait. And so that's the kind of the big core part of the computer player, was how do we make it wait and how do we make it decide? And so it came down to a simple approach I took where I'm just going to pick random numbers. I'm going to pick numbers out of a hat, and if I get the winning number, then I'm going to make a decision. Because one thing you don't want your computer player to be is predictable. So by just constantly picking numbers and not doing anything until I get the winning number, whatever it is, you're picking out of 100 numbers, maybe you choose 50, and if you pick it, then you make a decision. And so that's what this state is, and it's basically the initial state. And it's all going to be, once you make that decision, it's all going to be, where is that puck and how is it moving? So the decision process began, if the puck is on the other player's side and then the puck is moving towards me, I'm probably going to go into a defensive state. If I have the puck and it's not moving too fast, then I'm going to take a shot. And so that was the decision logic behind the computer. And once it makes that decision, it decides to go into one of three states. The board state, which we talked about, if the puck's just hanging out in the corner here doing nothing, and the other player's not doing anything, and it doesn't really have any decisions to make. It's not blocking a shot, it's not going on offense, so it's just going to get bored and move around. The next one is defense. If the player takes the shot, it's coming in, the best defensive position would be to put the paddle between the midway point of the puck and the goal box. And so that is what the computer will do. It will move into that position. And since I chose the halfway point, it constantly will update. And you'll see the computer kind of pull back and maybe deaden the blow of the shot. And so it looks like they're actually playing defense. Offense, it was a little trickier. And initially, I didn't go with my keep it simple approach. And I tried to be clever and calculate every single angle possible. And if I hit the puck at all these different angles, I'm going to simulate it out and see which ones score goals, which ones, score against me, and I'll rank them all, and then I can pick which strategy I want to do. And I was really excited just to do that, but at the end of the day, it just was too much processing, and I ended up just scrapping all of that, and I went with the simplest approach possible, which is just hit the puck, right? Just take the shot and hit it. And chances are your paddle is going to be in a random position anyway, and it's probably going to be a good shot no matter what, and it'll be tough to block. So that was the simple approach to offense. Just hit the puck. I realized after playing the computer for a while that sometimes the computer player would just hit the puck into its own goal. So that's not good. That's not a good computer player. So I broke that up into a two-stage process. The first stage is to pick a spot behind the puck, move the paddle into position, then hit the puck. And it actually looked a lot more realistic because it's just like a normal player would do, because they'll usually pull back and then they'll strike. So that's how offense ended up, and it actually looked pretty realistic. The next stage of this was to add computer difficulty to it. And so there were a lot of different ways. In the book, I create easy, medium, and hard level. And so some of the things, I was looking over the code, and some of the ways that I could, make the computer behave differently was, that decision state where we're picking random numbers. I'll just make the pool of numbers bigger. That would cause the computer to make longer decisions and slow down key things like going into defense. And so shots might, miss the computer, or it's still picking numbers while it goes by. So the larger pool of numbers would cause longer decisions. So that was one thing that was done. The other thing is I could slow the paddle down. Don't let the computer move as fast. So on the easy levels, it's going to move a lot slower into whatever position it's going to. The harder levels, it's going to it's going to move a lot faster to that position. It's going to hit the puck a lot harder, making a tougher shot. The other thing is you could skip logic altogether. Remember the two-phased offense? In easy mode, I skipped moving behind the puck. I just went right for the puck, which caused a lot more own goals. And so the computer will score against itself a lot more on easy mode. And that was one thing I did. The last thing I did was you can actually make some of the logic smarter. Remember the board state would just pick a random position on the board to move to? Well, why not pick it in closer to the goal box? That will put you in a random position, but it'll make it a more defensive position. So that's what I did for the hard levels, is the harder the level, the closer it would pick a random spot to the goal box. And all of those things combined generated completely different behaviors for each of the difficulties. And it was pretty easy to do. All right, well, the next part I want to go into is the fun stuff, the marketing and the sales of your app. I remember 2008 as a great year because you literally could build it and they would come. And those days are over, I hate to say. You build an app now, you build a game. They may come for a couple days while you're in that new releases category. But it's very difficult now to get the kind of visibility that you could 3 years ago. And but there are things that you can do, and there's things you do have to focus on. Marketing is just a big piece of this whole puzzle as everything else, including development and graphics and everything. Marketing is a big piece of that. So I want to talk a little bit about the strategies that I've learned in the last 3 years. How do you market your app? What are the things you can do? Of course, the first and easy stuff is, yes, you should have a website. I know that sounds kind of duh, no kidding, but I've seen a lot of developers that just linked directly to their Twitter account. This is my website, it's Twitter. That's not the best approach. It doesn't look very professional. If you have a lot of friends and family, it's time to spam them. And if you've never released, if this is your first app, they will embrace it, and they'll love you, and they'll buy it, and they'll leave you great reviews. If you're like me, after 30 apps, they could care less. Your emails just go in the junk folder. But for the first few apps, you're gonna be able to get a lot of great downloads from your friends and family. Of course, Facebook, Twitter. A lot of people wonder, should I create pages for all my different apps? Maybe I'm kind of lazy. I just have one company page. It does have the benefit of being able to cross-promote all your apps. So if I have fans of white noise, maybe I can get them to download one of my free games at the same time. And so I kind of do that approach with Twitter and Facebook. I just do one company. I guess if I had a runaway success like Angry Birds or Doodle Jump or something like that, I might change that strategy. YouTube is also great because you'll find if your app is getting reviewed, you're going to have some blogger out there taking a crappy video of your app and posting it, and it is now the official, video of YouTube for your app. Why not use the simulator, get a screen capture program, get a high-quality video of your app? Be the first one to get it out there. That always helps. And you're the only one that can do it. You're the only one that has the simulator. Maybe that's changed now with all the mirroring that you can do on the iPad, but back in the day, it wasn't great to get some of those crappy videos because filming the screen just doesn't look good. So use the simulator and get some screen capture software. And of course you have Google+. Web reviews can actually really change the rank of your application. Web reviews can drive downloads. My biggest success story was with a game called Card Counter. And so it was funny because Las Vegas issued a warning about card counting apps a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden everyone was buying my game, and I didn't know what was going on, but I got kind of pulled in as these card counter apps that were illegal. And so I kind of learned the lesson that any news is good news, because I was getting quotes like, "You use this app and you will go to jail." That was the headline. So that just drove downloads, The Register said TM-Soft was hiding behind disclaimers. Come on, it's a game, really? But those quotes were fine. I was okay with it. It was driving downloads. LA Times interviewed me. I got a great quote in the LA Times. Radio stations were calling me. They wanted card counting advice. I had NPR called me. It just, for 2 days, it just went nuts. And it pushed Card Counter all the way up to the number 13 spot. If I could go back in time, I would have lowered the price of my app. It was $2.99. If I lowered it to 99 cents when all that happened, I'm sure it would have gone